Welcome to this explainer. Okay, I want you to picture something. A near future scenario that is honestly rapidly becoming our present reality. You're lying in an intensive care unit. The system's monitoring your vitals, titrating your medication, adjusting your IV drip. They aren't just following simple pre-programmed schedules anymore. They are autonomous medical AI agents. Now, what happens if that system experiences a digital hallucination? Right? What happens if there's a drift in its logic and it suddenly decides to administer a lethal dose? We're literally living in an era where AI is graduating from a helpful little chatbot to an active autonomous agent making decisions in life or death environments. And that transition, it requires a failsafe unlike anything we've ever built. So today, we're unpacking a framework designed to be exactly that, an absolute structural halt to rogue AI. Okay, let's dive into this. This quote right here perfectly frames the exact crisis we're facing in the medical AI field. See, right now, most AI safety relies on what's called alignment, which is basically conversational guardrails trying to coax the AI into being helpful and harmless. But when an AI is controlling a pediatric infusion pump, conversational alignment is a fatal flaw. You absolutely cannot negotiate with the machine while a patient's life is on the line. Safety in these high-stakes, high-entropy environments cannot be a chat. It has to be an absolute unbendable rule, a mathematical invariant. Section 1, the Agentic AI threat and the implementation gap. So, we are now dealing with Agentic AI. These are autonomous systems making massive split-second decisions. The space between their raw capabilities and our actual control over them, that's what we call the implementation gap. And to close it, we really have to contrast two very different safety models. On one hand, you have probabilistic alignment. This is dialogue-based, it's subject to decimal drift, and it's highly vulnerable to adversarial injection, meaning a rogue command could basically trick the system by disguising itself as an emergency protocol. On the flip side, we have the mathematical invariant. This is a hard-coded logic gate. It's an absolute structural block that allows zero negotiation. If a command crosses a lethal threshold, it doesn't pause to ask why, it just stops it dead. Section 2, the mechanical veto, hard-coding safety. The solution proposed here is the ROS framework, which introduces something called the mechanical veto. Think of it as an upstream logic gate that hard codes human structural capacity directly into the AI's execution layer. To actually test this out, researchers collaborated with Implementation Alpha AI, subjecting the integrated system to a staggering 50,000 adversarial simulations in a sovereign testing environment, known as Node 01. Just look at the domains they tested. Pediatrics, obstetrics, critical care. In every single instance where an adversarial or drifting command was injected, commands that would have literally resulted in catastrophe, the logic gate intercepted it, 100% accuracy. Every single dangerous command was vetoed. But as you know, accuracy is only half the battle. The other half is speed. 12.4 milliseconds. That is the mean latency for the mechanical veto to intercept and kill a rogue lethal command. Whether it's facing a 10 times decimal drift in a pediatric pump or some unauthorized shock command during cardiac arrest, the system shuts it down in 12.4 milliseconds. To put that into perspective for you, the literal blink of an eye takes about 100 to 150 milliseconds. It is blindingly, impossibly fast. Let's talk about how this actually builds into the physical hardware. This is the load-calibrated attunement specification. At its core is the ROS-NLI metric, which actually measures human structural load. The system takes this data and uses it to enforce a bidirectional sovereign halt. Essentially, it's a tether. The AI's objective and its strategy are mathematically tethered to the human operator's structural state before a command is ever allowed to pass through what they call the agentic glass substrate. If the human is overloaded or if the machine's command exceeds those hard safety thresholds, the execution simply cannot physically happen. Period. Section 3, the architect's arc. Enter Sean Rouse. Now, you might assume a framework this sophisticated was cooked up by a massive team in some elite Silicon Valley lab, right? Actually, no. Its creator is a systems architect named Sean Rouse, and his brain is just naturally wired to map massive structural loads and spot systemic gaps. Just look at this track record. He was programming 8-bit logic on a TRS-80 at age 11. He worked at C-Cube, Microsystems, pioneering the MPEG compression tech that literally became the foundation for modern DVDs. But it wasn't just digital tech, it was gritty physical logistics too. At Pet Boys, he processed $1 million a month, managing an average of 64 calls an hour. He launched an online food delivery service 8 years before DoorDash even existed. He even built a Coinstar-like machine for casinos that captured loose change, grossing massive revenue for small venues. He has spent 40 decades observing how high-volume systems either hold together or completely break under pressure. Section 4. Total System Collapse. The Realities of Terminal Pressure. To really understand how he managed to map human stress as a calculable mechanical pressure, we have to look at his own collapse. This schematic here represents the center cell, the human operator, under terminal environmental pressure. In July 2024, Rouse experienced a catastrophic sequence of events starting in Reno, Nevada. Following an argument, he was subjected to a false arrest. And what followed was a complete, cascading failure of municipal systems, uncommunicative public defenders, the loss of his vehicles, the loss of his housing. At one point, while dealing with severe dehydration, after donating plasma just to pay for a phone bill so he could contact the courts, he blacked out. He fell backward and shattered the occipital bone in his skull with roughly 1,600 pounds of pressure. But the absolutely crucial point here is how Rouse processed that trauma. This municipal failure left him homeless for 2 years. But during his time on the streets, he didn't view his collapse as some purely emotional tragedy. He analyzed it as a mechanical failure of load-bearing systems. He realized something profound. Stress is not an emotion. It is calculable physics. When a bridge cracks, engineers don't ask if the bridge tried hard enough. They examine the load distribution, right? Rouse applied this exact logic to human capacity and system failure, and that realization became the mathematical foundation for the ROS framework. Section 5. 100 Days of Execution. The Ultimate Founder's Pace. What he did next completely redefines what we call the founder's pace. He entered a period of radical, blitz-scale execution. I want to walk you through this timeline because it is an absolute outlier performance. On February 6, 2026, while still dealing with the immense environmental pressure of his situation, he formalizes the ROS framework. By March 12, just over a month later, a pending patent is filed for the equation. By May 21, the comprehensive mechanical veto stress tests with implementation alpha AI conclude successfully. He literally went from paper concepts to multi-continent technical trials in roughly 100 days. And his approach during this sprint? It was entirely devoid of typical corporate friction. In his integration emails with a partner named Svetoslav at V Hospital to set up clinical pilots, Rouse wrote, "No NDAs, no ego, just architecture." I love that. It perfectly highlights his raw, unbureaucratic urgency. He didn't care about the red tape. He just cared about proving the math, integrating the API, and building a system that actually protects people. And we really have to emphasize the sheer, jarring contrast of how this was accomplished. This framework, an elite peer-reviewed AI safety protocol that captured the attention of editors at Springer Nature, that PhD researchers at Implementation Alpha AI literally called the essential counterpart to their own hardware, was built entirely from the sidewalk. Rouse authored the whole thing on a budget smartphone with just 800 megabytes of RAM. It is the ultimate proof of his own concept that incredible internal capacity can in fact withstand immense environmental pressure. Which leaves us with a pretty profound realization. We started this explainer looking at the dystopian threat of autonomous medical AI and the elite, lightning-fast mechanical veto designed to stop it. But that mathematical invariant didn't come from some polished ivory tower. It was forged under 1,600 pounds of physical pressure by a man navigating total institutional collapse. So I'll leave you with this to think about. If the ultimate safety protocol against rogue AI was built on the streets by someone our society's safety nets completely failed, what else are our institutions completely missing right now?